I was given the chance to become the post commander of Post 385. I immediately called Bob and Mimi, and I asked Bob, would you do me the great honor of installing me? And Bob immediately said he would be honored. Him and Mimi would come down to San Diego. They lived 140 or 50 miles into LA from where I was. But I was a little piggish. I said, besides installing me, I have renamed this post as soon as I become commander, the boldest post in the West, and I like you and Mimi to be part of it. It took one day. I got a phone call back. Bob informed me that he was transferring from all the years up in LA down to San Diego. 140 to 150 mile trip for a man who was in his mid-70s. He would stay at a hotel the night before. He would drive down and stay at a hotel, attend the meeting, him and Mimi. They did that for over 12 years. He and Mimi and past National President Donna Green were mine and Linda's mentors. They instructed us on all the things of JWV and JWVA. About 2005, Bob's called me up and said, Maxwell, time has taken its toll. He's now in his 80s. And it is very difficult for Mimi and I to travel. Of course, I try to hammer age is no factor, but we talked and I agreed with him that he should transfer back to an LA post. And this is what was done. A short time later, Bob went out of his house. He walked down. He had a couple of steps in front of where he lived. And Bob fell. That was the first of Bob Shor's strokes. At that same time, just a few months later, within the year, Mimi was admitted to a special hospital. Mimi, if you didn't know her, was blind. She was a veteran, and she was also a national president of the Ladies Auxiliary. So she was in a special home while Bob still was in his house. But Bob went on to have a couple of more strokes. Hashem wasn't looking at him in a good light at that time. Linda and I would call to see how Mimi was in this facility. At the next thing we knew, Bob was transferred to the same facility, but in a different part, about a half a mile away, because Mimi was in one section for her needs, and I won't go into what her needs were, and he was in another section. I would get phone calls very late at night, but this was normal, from an individual called past National Commander Robert Zwyman. And he would ask me about Mimi's condition and Bob's condition, and I would report to him. I would also get calls once in a while from Mordechai Hirsch. You know him as your NED. He's Colonel Herb Rosenblit. And he would ask the same question of me. How is Mimi and Bob doing? And I would report to him. Prior to my swearing in as your national commander at that time, in 2014, I called Bob to inform him that I was going to be installed as national commander. His aide, who would get on the phone, Bob at that time couldn't talk on the phone. He couldn't hear any of the words. They were incoherent. So his aide would be right next to him. And his aide said he smiled, was very happy, and sent his best love. I also then, a couple years later, told him that Linda was to be a national president, and the same thing occurred. My last words to Bob, by the way, let me skip back just a drop. Mimi passed away a few years right after or prior to that. So Bob was alone at this home. My last words to Bob were a few weeks prior to his passing. At that time, Bob got on the phone and he whispered to me, "Hi." That was his last words to me. And his aide said he smiled. He was happy to hear from me. And he sent his best wishes and love to us. Bob passed away on 8 December 2018. He was born April 11th, 1921. He was 97 years of age at the time of his passing. He will surely be missed by all concerned, and may he rest in eternal peace by Mimi's side. I thank you kindly.
And this one is for PNC Ron Zeigler. May he rest in peace. This gentleman was only 82 years old when he passed away. He led the fight for the Jewish war vets very proudly and eminently. This gentleman did not back off for anybody. And that was proven as he went along his way, trying to encourage others to join with him. One of the memories I have is the time he fought the Battle of Farrakhan. If people remember who Farrakhan was. Farrakhan led his people on the streets within Philadelphia, exciting other people to join with him to use discrimination against Jews. Ronnie organized the entire population of the Jewish war vets. Over 100 and some of us stood on the street across from where Farrakhan was speaking. Police came over to us and said, "Please don't start anything." And we just said to Ron, "What do we do now?" And he answered, as a lawyer, and a criminal lawyer at that, and told the police, "We have the right for assembly, the same as Farrakhan." Soon after, Farrakhan packed his bags and left the area. That was just one of the battles that Ronnie Zeigler led. He also fought the battle of prostate cancer. The VA did not, at the time, have much to do for veterans who had this particular problem. But Ronnie led legislation to change that. That's one of the inherited facts that he did to fight for people. This included a time when a patient of cerebral palsy, born from child, was allowed by the Veterans Administration for those parents that were entitled to JWV to allow this person to get an education, and continue, if he could, using that education to get a job. Promised that if he got a job and the cerebral palsy worsened, he would be able to come back to the VA system. That was not true. Once that individual got a job, the VA said, well, now he's employed and he has an education. He does not come back, or that person does not come back to the VA system. Ronnie got us to people that did pro bono work for families like this. So with the help of the Jewish war veteran leader, Ron Zeigler, over $100,000 of expense money was not needed because they did this pro bono to fight for this cerebral palsy individual. His wife, Leona, cared very much for Ron, and that went all the way from Philadelphia to Florida, where Ron became a member of Post 639, I believe, in Florida, your post. He served very well and led an active life in the synagogue. Was very prominent in Philadelphia as well, where he led the Saturday Shabbat for the nursing home that he helped establish, known as the Delaware Valley Nursing Home. The big highlight of Ronnie was a Righteous Gentile program that he led for Elizabeth Visser. Robert Swyman was our guest speaker for that event in Philadelphia at the Sheraton, a brand new hotel that we packed and brought in the governor, Randell, as well. And this was done through the attributes of Ron Zeigler, always a fighter to the very end. He passed at the age of 82. May he rest in peace. Amen.
Maxwell, Ron, thank you for those words of remembrance to our fallen comrades. It's important that we always remember those leaders who came before us, for we stand on their shoulders, and that's how we improve and grow the organization, and that's our legacy. At this time, it gives me great honor and pleasure to introduce Major General Baruch Levy, the Israeli Defense Forces. We've known each other for quite a number of years, and he's been a great friend of JWV over many years. He really needs no further introduction. I would opine that most of the people in here have met the general on more than one occasion. He's always interesting. He's always inspiring. He was a great host when we were in Israel in April. So without any further ado, General, we turn the podium over to you.
Shalom. Shalom, Boker Tov. Good morning. Very happy to be here once again. My wife with me here. And thank you. And I bring you very, very good wishes and greetings from your comrades in arms in Israel. The Tzevet Association is growing up, and we are now more than 40,000 members, and all of us are here with you, congratulating you on our 72nd years of independence, and yours 200 and so many years. My mission this morning is to make you more optimistic, because of you are Jewish and you are members of the security and armed forces of the United States of America, and because of being very good friends of the State of Israel. And the optimism goes like this. 100 years ago, there was the end of the First World War, and the Middle East was a kind of a desert at that time. The Ottoman Empire collapsed. Nothing was there. Then came the conquerors, the French and the British. And then they divided the area into several countries. Artificial division, artificial boundaries of countries. Iraq and Syria and Lebanon and others. The only country that was beforehand was Egypt. That's it. And of course, Eretz Israel, the state of Israel, so many thousands years beforehand. Now, I am mentioning it because these artificial boundaries cause many problems that we see them even up till now. That's one thing. Then at the same time, the Jewish people began coming back to Israel, even few years beforehand. But at that time, there was the first Aliyah and the second and the third, and thousands of Jews came back to the land of Israel, also because the British recognized the right of the Jews to come back by the Balfour Declaration, etc. Now, we never, from the very first moment that our fathers and grandfathers came back to Israel at that time, we never been welcomed by the Arabs. They did not want us there. And we should remember it because they do not want us even to date in that part of the world. But this is a fact now. Because of that, there was this kind of a dispute between the two peoples at that time. By the way, Jewish people stayed after the destroy of the second temple 2,000 years ago. Jewish people still lived in 4 cities in the state of Israel. That was Jerusalem, Hebron, Safed, and Tiberias, up till, of course, the comeback of the Jews. But this is the background of all what has been going on. Now, of course, there was the 1947, 1948. There was that another opportunity for the two peoples to take their independence, take their faith in their hands, and to develop. So the Jews took it. I mean, the Israelis, we took it as an opportunity, and we are celebrating 72 years of independence, of becoming one of the most advanced countries in the world. We are number so-and-so in happiness. We are number so-and-so in high-tech. We are number so-and-so, and number so-and-so is among the 20 upper level countries in the world. This is the state of Israel. On the other hand, the Palestinians and the Arabs, what happened to them in the past 100 years? They got almost everything from all these powers, the French and the British, and also many, many other European countries because of their oil. And they were quite rich, many of them, Saudi Arabia and others. But what happened in the course of time, first of all, they did not, again, up till now, they did not welcome the presence of the Jews at that part of the world. That's one thing. They did not take advantage of the proximity of the Jews there, of the development of the high-tech, of the science, of the technology, of everything, of being a Western island within this Arab desert in that part of the world. On the other hand, what they do, they became maybe even fighting each other up till now. they do this thing, the ISIS, the Daesh, what we call, you call them the ISIS. This is the idea. The ISIS is the idea of changing the world to become a Muslim world. This is the idea. Don't take it in any other interpretation. That's the idea. Just a couple of days ago, they kept killing each other. There was that killing, that bomb in Afghanistan, in a wedding by the Muslim against Muslims. A week ago, there was something between the Turks and the Syrians in that part of the world. Any day they fight each other, they kill each other. That's what brought the Islam people, because they are not facing the reality of what's happening in the world. They are not facing the development of the well-being of the people. That's not their target. And because of that, they are losing and losing, and now they are at the standstill of a chaotic situation. Now, when it comes to Israel and Palestine, the Palestinians, again, they, you know, that expression that they did not miss a chance not to miss any chance, and that they missed the chance in 47, they missed the chance in many, many other occasions throughout the years, and up till now they have not yet got to any solution. The change also is now, and as we see it, that Israel stopped to become the problem of the area, and it is becoming the solution of the area. And some of the countries see it eye to eye with Israel, such as Saudi Arabia, such as Egypt, such as Jordan, and others, because they know and they appreciate the advantages that they can get because of the presence of the Israelis and the collaboration with Israel in many, many fields. And it is becoming. Now there is a change. If we have to look to have any kind of an outlook for the coming, say, 10 years or so, we believe that there will be a better chance now because of these powers in the Middle East, of Islamic powers who see together with the Israelis the same ideas of bringing a better future and a better well-being to the countries in the Middle East, and of course including Israel in that Middle East, not as the others, as the Hamas and the Hezbollah and the ISIS and all other, I don't know how to call them. They are not, they don't bring up any normal, any acceptable approach to life, not to their own life, to their own people, and of course they don't see us as as we have the right to belong to that part of the world. Now, also we have to see that the Jewish world is also doing something very, very positive towards the better outlook. Jewish world here in the United States, in many other countries that we have good Jewish communities, I think the unity of the Jews between Israel, the Jews in Israel, and between the Jews outside Israel is very important, also helping to bring up that idea of the contribution of the State of Israel, not only to the Jews, but also to the entire world in many, many aspects, as many countries in Europe, in America, and Far East Asia and many other countries recognize it, which is very important. The Jewish people should feel also proud. They should take pride of this development, because the unity between the state of Israel, as I see it, and the Jewish communities, and mainly the Jewish community here in the United States, is very important for the development in the very near future. Now it comes to, of course, to the politics between the United States and the state of Israel. And there is always this problematic ambiguity whether we are loyal, whether the Jews are loyal to the state of Israel, or they are loyal to God, or to the President of the United States, or to the Queen of England, etc. All the time it has been going on, and it is part of the anti-Semitism that has been going on for so many thousands of years. And I think that what we see, and we have to see, between the United States and Israel, that these two countries, the big superpower of the world, the United States of America, and the little superpower of the Middle East, the state of Israel, they have so many values in common, values of freedom, values of the Bible, values of so many Western approach of well-being. And because of that, it is irrespective who is the president here and who is the prime minister there, because this is a very solid foundation for continuity and continuing strong relation between the two countries, and we appreciate it very, very much. We know that the present president here, he takes pride of this thing, and he says that he, in the state of Israel, he can become the God of that place, or perhaps the God of the entire world. But this is not the real thing. The real thing is that when it comes to the business, I think between the two administrations, the state of Israel and the United States of America, it's very, very close. It has been going on for the better and becoming more stronger, and that's what we think will be also the basis for any part of some kind of understanding in the Middle East, some kind of getting together, getting to better relations among many other countries, more than the 2, 3, 4, 5 that we have always built with the assistance of the United States. So this is another very important pillar of the building that we try to continue in the future. In I think maybe 2 or 3 more points here. We have to derive a lesson. We, I mean the Israelis, and perhaps also the Jewish people over the world. I think this is a different time. These 100 years that I talk about also included the Shoah, the Holocaust, among one of the most developed countries, most cultural countries in the world, Germany. And the contribution of the Jewish people, not only to Germany, but to Germany and to many other countries, was very much appreciated until that time. So this is another lesson that we have to understand. We have to understand that this kind of anti-Semitism is still there. It's still also here in this country. It is in the Middle East. It is in many, many Islamic countries, in many countries also in Europe. Now, the question is why this hatred is continuing. And we should not be, we should not take it so hard, because we should believe in what we're doing. And what we're doing, we, the Jewish people, what we're doing in Israel, and what we're doing all over the world, we just contributing to the well-being and to the welfare of the communities in which we live in. That's the way we should see it, and this is the fact that every place that there is a Jewish community, there is a contribution to the well-being of the country. And see the levels of the Jewish people who came up in every echelon in so many countries. Very important. So this is a lesson that we have when we see so many anti-Semitism, even here when you see so many killing in this synagogue, in another synagogue, and in many other countries, and also in our country. We see just last night, there were 2, 3 rockets, again, shot from Gaza into Israel, because this is the day-to-day life there. That all of you have been to Israel, you saw for yourself that life goes on. It is a prosperous country that people happy. There was this international survey of happiness of people, and the state of Israel is one of the upper. There is 89.9% of the people happy. This is, you do not see, I don't know what's the percentage here in the United States, but this is close to 90% of people, in spite of so many problems that we face in that part of the world, because we believe that what we're doing is right. We believe in our right to stay there, to live there, and to develop the country, and we are open, of course, to any kind of partnership and cooperation with whoever brings it up. Last point is this business of whether we are blocking the road to peace or someone else. So if we look back into the history, we see that we came there to live in peace. We came there to develop the place and to, of course, to have a home to the Jewish people in the state of Israel. And the question whether two-state solution, one-state solution, any state solution, as the present president here said, one state, two state, whatever they like. Okay, so we say that we are there to stay. We know that they are also there to stay. We never said that we are going to throw them into the sea. We never said that they don't have any right to be there, to live there or so. And we are always open. Any government in the state of Israel, and we are now about to have another set of elections. Hopefully it will be successful this time. And I think any government will be open to any kind of settlement between us, and this settlement is now, as I said before, is more close than it used to be before, because of the partnership and the cooperation of some of the Islamic countries and Arab countries in the area. So if we look up to what's happening, what will happen in the coming few years, I think we are there, we are open, we are developing, we are strong, and we feel strong, we feel right, and we believe in what we're doing. And because of all that, the future is much more bright than many, many people think it to be. Thank you very much.
It's always a pleasure to have you here. And I know that our relationship between JWV and Shabbat will continue. But on a personal level, there's a couple of things. We share the same first name. Baruch. Secondly, when we were in the Medina in Jerusalem, the store unfortunately was closed. There was a poster that had the flag of Israel and the flag of Texas. And the caption was, Israel, the other Lone Star State. And I would have loved to have purchased that, but the store was closed and I didn't think breaking in was the right thing to do. So anyway, General, it is absolutely an honor to have you here, and a contribution has been made to the National Museum of American Jewish Military History in your honor, presented by the Jewish War Veterans. It's signed by me, by Norm Rosenstein, and by Herb Zeigler. So thank you so much. And again, it's always an honor to have you. For many, many years. Okay, our next speaker is Jack Teil. Jack is the Executive Director of the United States Army Warrant Officers Association. He serves as the principal point of contact with representatives of the Department of Defense, the United States Congress, and the White House. He also represents the USA WOA Warrant Officers Association on the military coalition, where he now serves as president. Jack retired from the Army in 2012 with 26 years of service. His last assignment was as Chief Administrator of the Office of the Chief Consul, National Guard Bureau. He was decorated 27 times during his career, his highest award being the Legion of Merit. He is a graduate of Columbia Union College with a bachelor's degree in business administration. He's married to Karen, and together they are the proud parents of Michelle. And I am happy to call Jack a friend, and he's a supporter of JWV and a wonderful patron of Post 755 in Fort Worth. Jack, come on up.
Well, good morning, folks. Thanks. So I was honored to accompany the Jewish war vets this year on their Allied mission to Israel, where I first met General Levy. General Levy, I didn't have the opportunity to meet your lovely wife. I'm sure I'll have that opportunity later. But thank you for being here. I'd like to thank a few people. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody that was on our trip. And if you look at the screen over here, that's our merry band from the trip, standing in front of the Church of the Nativity in Jerusalem. And but I really would like to thank Barry. I'd like to thank Norm Rosenstein. I'd like to thank my good friend and my mentor, who I'm president of the military coalition because he is the immediate past president, and he asked me to run. And he's been a mentor of mine ever since I joined the military coalition. One of three key mentors that I had when I first came into the coalition, and I can't thank you enough for taking me under your wing. But all of these folks were good enough to recommend and ask me to come on this mission. And I will tell you that it was before I get into my observations, because this is what this briefing is about, my observations. This was the trip of a lifetime. Bar none, never been on a trip that was more impactful to me than this trip to Israel. The only trip I will ever take again that I suspect will be every bit as impactful is when I take my wife back. to Israel because she couldn't accompany me. We're going to do it as soon as we can. And that's a good segue into a little disclaimer. So my observations on this trip are, I think, a little unique. My grandfather was raised in an Orthodox Jewish household. I was raised a Christian. I fell in love with and married the most beautiful woman in the world, and my best friend, who was a Jewish girl, Karen. So I have sort of a unique perspective, I think. There are other people like me, I'm sure, that have that perspective. I used to listen to the stories my grandfather would tell about how cousins over in Europe that he was pen pals with, all of a sudden in the late 30s and early 40s, he stopped getting letters from them. So that had an impact on me at a young age, and made this trip all that much more important. But in any event, let's move to the first slide or the next slide. My overall impression is that visiting Israel only solidified my long-held belief that it is our own nation's most important, loyal ally in that entire region of the world. It just is. And I will tell you, and a lot of this will sound familiar because the general touched on several points I'm going to make, being there and interacting with the people, I can tell you without reservation that Israel's loyalty is heartfelt by its citizenry. It's not just diplomatic. These people are loyal to us as Americans, as their ally. My reason that I really think that is the case is I point to one factor, and that's the compulsory military service that our youngsters don't have to go through. That every single Israeli, with the exception of a few that get a deferment, serve in the military for a couple of years. And they are acutely aware, they have an awareness of the threats to their liberty. And the threats are real. They're taught Jewish history, and I say the long view. They're given the long view of history. They're taught in their schools. But they are also taught about the state of Israel itself, and it's relatively short, but unbelievably miraculous history and survival. And we can go to the next slide. So the first place we went and visited was Independence Hall and the Haganah Museum, and that's on that day. That was when I had the pleasure of meeting General Levy. And we got a really good briefing from General Levy about the current state of affairs over there from a military perspective, an unclassified briefing, obviously, but a really good, robust briefing on sort of the situation. And we went and visited the Haganah Museum. So the Haganah, I'm pretty sure, General, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe their roots go all the way back to about 1907. With folks in settlements that were cropping up, basically arming themselves as sort of an unofficial militia to protect their settlements. Their official start was in 1921, and it ran through 1948 under the British mandate. Technically, they were an illegal organization, but I think the British sort of looked at the Haganah and just went, "Ooh, that's terrible." They didn't do anything about it because these people were basically partners of theirs an awful lot of the time in controlling some of Arab uprisings and things of this nature. They also served in great numbers in World War II as part of the British Army. I believe, and I was led to believe over there, that a lot of that service in World War II, fighting the evil Axis powers, was crucial to their learning curve as soldiers, and they brought that experience back with them to the Haganah, which became the IDF in 1948, probably on 14 May 1948, which is when the UN, of course, did the partition and recognized Israel as a state. David Ben-Gurion comes to Independence Hall, I believe it was at Independence Hall, and declares the state of Israel. 24 hours later, they are set upon by 5 Arab nations. Think about that for a minute. You declare independence, in less than 24 hours, you're fighting a war with 5 other nations who hate you for God knows what reason. Because you're Jewish. The Haganah, their experience, their collective experience over those years as an unofficial, sort of underground militia, the experience they had in World War II. We also visited a place, and it's up there on the slide, called the Ayalon Institute, which was hidden under a kibbutz. It was an underground facility, and kids who were members of the Haganah between about the ages of 14 and 18 worked in that facility, and it was such a guarded secret that the kibbutz they built over top of it, all the other workers on that kibbutz, none of them knew about the Ayalon Institute underground. They hid it. Everyone would get up in the morning, they'd have their breakfast, and then they'd all head out to their jobs in the fields and so forth, and these people would peel off, go into, I believe, the laundry facility, where they moved this huge piece of laundry equipment aside, and there was a tunnel, and I believe, there you go. On the right upper left-hand corner, there's a picture of that tunnel. That's how they got down into this Ayalon Institute. Basically, it was an ammunition factory. They produced millions and millions of rounds of mostly 9mm ammunition that I guess were used in predominantly in grease guns that Haganah and of course the IDF in 1948 used in combat. Without that collective work, I don't think the War of Independence, as the Israelis call this initial conflict, would have gone the way it went. I mean, it was crucial. That experience, that ammunition that they'd already built and constructed, that was crucial to that victory, that initial War of Independence. We also visited the Armored Corps Memorial Museum at Latrun, Israel, which was, I believe, taken from the Jordanians in the Six-Day War, a crucial point in Israel strategically. That, along with the Golan Heights, which we also visited, if you stand in those locations and just look, just stand there and look, you can understand the strategic necessity of these locations being the part of Israel, so that the country isn't literally cut in half and indefensible. I was very happy to hear that our government earlier this year officially recognized the Golan Heights, that it should remain in Israeli control, and moved our embassy to Jerusalem. So anyway, going and visiting those places, to me, just sort of reinforced what I already believed. I came in with a preconceived notion, but it was solidified by actually visiting these places, actually looking at the lay of the land and realizing what the situation is over there. We also visited Yad Vashem. Yad Vashem is the Holocaust Museum in Israel. I've got copies of our magazine. Our trip was the cover story in the June edition. There's a box of them. Barry Lashinsky, my friend and roommate in Israel, told me, tell them they're under Harvey. So there's a sign up there sitting on top of a box. Please take one of these. The article was also published in the Jewish Veteran. You may have already read it. I think I have a few more pictures in the copy here. So please, I brought them so everybody could have a copy of them. But in the article, when I talked about Yad Vashem, I said, there just isn't any way to, you can't describe it. You can only experience it. And I think everybody who walks in there takes away something different. If I had to pick out one thing that I took away, was the care that the Israelis have put into not only preserving the horrific history of the Holocaust, but also in preserving the memory of people who were basically allies to the Jewish people in World War II, like Schindler and people like that. And there were hundreds, thousands of them. And if you go and visit Yad Vashem in Israel, it's near the end of the tour if you walk through. And it's a series of just drawers with names on them of people who protected Jews the best they could, fought back in any way they could, like Schindler, who basically ran a factory that produced duds for the German army. He did whatever he could. And so it was really, that was impactful. The whole place was impactful. You have to go. You can't describe it. So I'll just leave it at that. That, by the way, as you can see in the caption, was at the Armored Museum that we visited. That picture, that's the group. Next slide. So one of my huge impressions was how Israel is so often miscast. Completely miscast. In our media, and even to our shame by a few of our politicians. So I have a bullet up there saying the occupier lie and the lunacy of land for peace argument. And that is an impression that I've had for years. And again, it was just reinforced. All I'll say is it's pretty tough to make a peace agreement with a group of people who have a constitution that has as an element of it the complete and utter destruction of the state of Israel and its people, and the murder of its people. That's in the Constitution in Palestine. So until something changes, sir, I'm heartened to hear that your impression is that things are getting better, and General's right on target when he talks about other Arab countries. But in order for there to be peace, I don't know how else the Israelis can compromise. But you can't compromise on that one. You just can't. They're a nation of compassionate and highly innovative people. We visited, as you can see on the slide, the Galilee Institute of Science. Oh, no. First, I want to talk about the Galilee Medical Center, which is a level 1 trauma center right near the Syrian border. And here's a story I never saw on an American newscast. 4,000 horrifically mangled victims of the Syrian war were treated at a cost of, it had to be billions of dollars, personally approved by the Prime Minister, Mr. Netanyahu, to care. I mean, literally, they were using 3D printing to come up with replacement jawbones, things of this nature. Just amazing medical care given to these folks free of charge. They even allowed their families to accompany them while they were being treated. Okay? Everyone wants to talk in the media, that some of the nut jobs in the media want to talk about, that they wouldn't let any refugees in from Syria. Yeah, of course not. Okay, this is a country that has been to war with Israel several times. It's where we've seen the birth and growth of ISIS. Of course you're not going to let refugees in. It's a matter of security. But they let these wounded people in and treated them for free. Would have loved to see that story on our news. That's a compassionate nation. We visited the Weizmann Institute, and it was named after Chaim Weizmann, the first president of Israel. Folks, this is an amazing institution where they basically invite the smartest people who compete to be there to just sit around all day and dream up cool stuff. And I'll just leave it at that. I mean, some of the most amazing scientific discoveries. How many people here use the Waze application? Okay, can thank Israel. They invented it. You like using your computers, right? Intel chip. Israel invented it. Okay? You walk along, even if you walk outside this hotel, I'll bet they have an irrigation system with little pipes that slowly release water and keep everything nice and green. Guess who invented that? Somebody on a kibbutz. They had a line of trees growing. One tree seemed to be growing faster than all the others. Guy says, I wonder why that is. Started digging down, found a slow leak in a water line going into the kibbutz kitchen. Hey, they patented it, and it's all over the world. They have pound for pound, and I mean per capita, as a population, per capita, they have the largest impact of any other nation on this earth. If they had 300 million citizens like we did, boy, imagine the innovation that would come out of that country. So, you know, like I said, so often miscast. Just Google, like I say up here, just Google the words Israeli inventions. We didn't get the audio to work, right? Okay. I was going to show you a video called Little Israel. I would ask everybody to go Google Little Israel or Bing it or whatever. Do a search. There's this great video out there with this guy telling you, just listing off all the amazing accomplishments in science, medicine, you name it. That came from Israel. Next slide. So, I also believe that they are, and this I really didn't know the extent until I went there, they are the archaeologists, caretakers, and guardians of our collective history. Okay? And my understanding is that the preservation of history, and it's not just Jewish history, it's the history of that area, is a national imperative in Israel. And they're discovering stuff every day. Just a couple of weeks ago, I sent an email to Barry with a story I saw online where they believe they've actually found and been able to carbon date and prove the actual location of the city of David. And a lot of it is based on artifacts that they found, archways and things of this nature. They've been able to go back and not only bounce against historical texts in Christian and Jewish faith, but also secular writers of the time back then whose histories have been, I mean, it's just amazing what they do to verify their history, and they preserve it. You think any of that would have happened without the state of Israel? No. When someone from, say, Palestine or another Arab person wants to build, say, a mosque, and they want to build it in Israel, Israel said, go ahead, build your mosque if they're Israeli Arabs, right? But we have rules for excavating because we want to preserve any historical find, right? So what do you suppose they do? They come in with excavation equipment, dig the place up and throw the dirt away, and the Israelis go back and find the dirt and sift through it and find your history. It's the way it is. Sorry. That's what happened. Without Israel, our collective history as Christians, Jews, and yes, Muslims would be lost without the Israeli state. That's just the way it is. We visited all kinds of places. Masada, that's one of the places we visited. This was one of Herod's palaces. I call it Herod's escape pad. It was a castle he built on a huge mountain because he was paranoid that everybody was out to try and assassinate him. He's probably right. But he built this place and never even went there. They hauled, I guess, on the one road that they were able, the path that they were able to get up to it, they hauled enough water to fill up just hundreds of thousands of gallons of water in cisterns and even a swimming pool that he had put into this place. Later, and I can't remember which group of Jews it was that settled there, and I don't know. Do you remember that? Amazing story. These folks settled in this Masada. It was impervious. The Romans came along, thought they could take them off the hill. Oh, we'll just wait them out and do a siege. When they run out of water, they'll come down. These people were actually throwing water down on the Romans. They just heckling because they had so much water. Finally, a couple of years later, the Romans managed to build a land bridge over a couple of years in order to walk up there. These folks knew it, and rather than submit to slavery and torture, they chose death. They found a way to do it so that they killed each other so they wouldn't be in violation of Jewish law until the last person was alive and he prayed for forgiveness in advance and killed himself. Talk about resolve. Talk about spirit. So that story impacted me. And again, all of this history that they're uncovering, we went to the Church of the Nativity. That's where the first picture was from. We walked the Stations of the Cross to the Church of the Assumption. Actually touched the slab. And again, Israel discovered this and carbon dated it and figured out this is what it was. We touched the slab that his body was anointed on after he was crucified. Amazing history from both Christianity and its parent, its mother faith, Judaism, preserved, and in partnership with international religious partners, the Vatican, Protestant faiths in the United States that have contributed resources to help out with this. But it's Israel. It's Israel that does it. Without Israel, our history would perish. Plain, pure, and simple. Next slide. Here's a nice picture of the Western Wall. Said a prayer there for my ancestors. That was very moving. Again, Israel's responsible for preserving these things. Next slide. So, here are my conclusions. Confirm the importance of the Israeli-U.S. alliance. The Israeli people, far more pro-American than are portrayed by our media. And here's a big takeaway. Israel doesn't need us, folks. They've been doing a pretty good job on their own ever since 1948, and really before. They don't need the United States. The United States and Israel need each other. And we should reciprocate that relationship. And I'll list some of the main areas, aside from our military alliance, in economics, science, agricultural development, and again, the culture that I spent a lot of time talking about. We need each other. If you have the opportunity to go on this trip, folks, don't think about it twice. You'll come back, you'll be moved, and you'll come back with a lot of perspective. Thanks for listening to me, Meander. Please pick up the box magazine. Huh? Oh.
So as you can tell, Jack was thoroughly unimpressed, had a miserable time. Let me tell you this, Harvey is putting together a great trip for next year. If you haven't been on one of the Allied mission trips, you really do have to go. Besides all of the learning we did, we had a lot of fun, didn't we, Jack?
Oh.
Maybe a little too much sometimes?
Yeah, nothing to add for.
And for the various posts and departments, remember this is the Allied mission trip. We were honored to have Jewish war veterans send Jack on the trip. Teil sent a Allied mission person on the trip, and there were a couple of others. Dig up the money, find a candidate of this caliber who's going to go out and tell the story, because that's their job when they get back, is to tell the story of their visit and what Israel means to us and what we mean to Israel. I know Harvey's going to have a great trip. I don't have the details yet, but watch for it coming soon to a email near you. So, my friend, a contribution has been made to the National Museum of American Jewish Military History in your honor, and it's presented and signed by me and Norm and Herb, just guys you don't know.
Right.
and Christy needs a photo op. And it's so good as always to see you. We're going to expect you to come down today.
Roger that, sir. and I'll be at the banquet tonight. So
Wonderful.
Hopefully
I
somebody's
think.
going to roast this guy.
Oh my God. Scary stuff. At this time, I would like past National Commander Ed Goldwasser to come up and deal with the raffle. She was. I don't see her. While that's coming up, I've been asked to make an announcement that Harvey Weiner's Hospitality Room 322 will be open until 2:30 today. I don't know whether it's AM or PM. As you know, the raffle was for 2 days at the hotel if you're here, or $250. So who are we going to make an enemy of today? Well, we all love Major General Baruch Levy, so I will ask him to draw a ticket out of this bag. Kim? You were Maxwell. Kim Queen. There he is. You'll be the recipient of a check or 2 days off your bill. So we'll take care of it, Julia. We'll see to it that you're reimbursed. See, it does pay to come to convention, doesn't it? We have just a little more business to conclude before we go into recess this morning. Bob, Jacobs, or Art, we have the Vietnam Committee report.
Yes. Good morning. Or is it? Yeah. All right. Yeah, I'm the guy who was running around in the Stetson yesterday, but today I'm back at JWV. All right. I'd like to thank the microphone. Okay, how's that? I almost want to eat it. I would first like to thank the over 40 people who attended the committee meeting yesterday, and my co-chairman, Art Kaplan, who took over when my throat gave out about halfway through the meeting. Al Adler, there he is. Al Adler, who takes great minutes and always does. And there are some others. Okay, we had a number of things on the agenda. The literary project that we've been working on for a long time, putting together a disc of Jews who served during the Vietnam era in whatever branch of service, wherever they served. It's coming to a conclusion. We hope to have it published by the end of the year with all profits on sales going to the museum. That was the whole purpose of it. And we're talking with the museum people next year at the convention in Jacksonville. We are hoping to be the convention or the museum event. Maybe it'll be like a book signing thing. We don't know. We'll find out. We also are starting a new project. We are talking with Pam Elby and others in the museum to put in a special Vietnam exhibit. So we're working towards it. We've come up with a general theme. It will probably focus in on the Jewish experience in the military during the Vietnam era, but we shall see. That's just the beginning, but it's a new work in progress. Nelson Melitz is our liaison to the Veterans Administration, and he gave us an update on the Mission Act, and there was a very long question and answer period, and a lot of people had a lot of information and a lot of questions, and it was a good part of the event. Kim Queen, whose name we just heard on another facet, the JWV, the Vietnam Veterans Committee, is working on creating a Facebook page for the committee. And unfortunately, there were some technical problems, but he gave us an update. I suppose there'll be more on that in February. And the dinner last night, as you know, was a great success. We had over 80 people attend. There was a lot of camaraderie and very little in the way of speeches. And we hope to do the same next year. And that's the report. Thank you.
You know, we get all these tall guys, so we got to keep adjusting. I have to keep adjusting the mic. It happens when you're vertically challenged. The next report is the Gulf War. Rachel.
So, yes, I am Rachel, Rochelle, Hyman, again, depending on your regional dialect. In Pirkei Avos chapter 5, there's a few things which we are told characterize a wise person, such as a wise person doesn't speak before one who is greater than them in wisdom, and he responds to first things first and last things last. And the opposite are some of the characteristics of a stupid person. So while I trust I've at least accomplished one, let me update you on the Gulf War Committee before you start questioning the rest of my intelligence. The Gulf War Committee had a bit of a rocky start this year, but we had an excellent meeting yesterday, and I thank all of you who came. It wasn't 40 people, but we did have rugelach. And it was delicious. Ask anybody who was there. What we did is we worked to flesh out the organizational structure of the committee positions, as well as something which we view as critical, and that being one of modes of communication. Some of the other subcommittees and positions that we had talked about, and we're going to go back to our posts and departments to ask people to get involved with, include not only things like recruitment, but also a social media guru, someone who's going to be our liaison as far as medical research for the things which affect in our era. A committee coordinator, we would really like to see, as far as to have someone who is coordinating between all of the other committees, so that we can find information as far as what everybody is doing and network, as well as a mentor coordinator. What we would like to see as far as the Gulf War era is sort of the fulcrum point between the eras before us and the eras after us. And we all have incredible people in our posts who can be mentors to those on the going on from the up as well as down. And we'd like to see some of that going on. We also have an email established and decided on other modes of communication, such as a Facebook page, group, and other social media places where people of this era and not just our era, but as far as anyone in JWV or prospective members can meet, talk, and network with those nationwide. Our basic mission statement is the Gulf War Committee is committed to encourage, promote, and expand the goals of our organization by harnessing the wisdom and contributions of our era veterans to further the involvement of Jewish war veterans as a whole. Our hallmark is support on all levels, from outreach to inreach, active duty to senior roster members within our organization as well as our local communities, and we resolve to increase communication functions within our organization. So just the first things first, here's the last things last. We're taught that we should look into the Torah and live with the times. So meaning that we should take a look at each week's Torah portion, the Torah portion of the week, and extrapolating an example that we can use that week. So this week is Parsha Akev, and we have the second paragraph of the Shema in there. The first paragraph talks about the fundamental beliefs of our individual relationship with God, and the second mimics it, which is in this week's Parsha, but with a caveat as well as a reward. The second is about our efforts and struggles and using our capabilities and gifts. Reward is only mentioned in this second paragraph because a reward is something which must be earned by our work. Only when we sweat for something, and I'm sure you know and have had this, only when we sweat for something do we really appreciate the experience and feel the elation of accomplishment. So I want you to know that we of this era are rolling up our sleeves and are ready to work. And may we all share with the rewards together.
Thank you. I appreciate everything that you've done to pull this thing together and continue to go from strength to strength and building. Is Josh in the audience? Thank you. Josh, come on up and talk to us about the 9/11 group.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. This is the committee report for the post 9/11 committee. 5 months ago, I was asked to lead this committee. After a brief discussion, I accepted the appointment. Knowing that I could not do this alone, I started to assemble a team of volunteers to identify our purpose, the direction to take the committee, and how to get there. We developed a mission statement, which I will read for you. The core values of the JWV post 9/11 committee is to advocate and offer support for the generation of civilian warriors that volunteered and served our country. While we share a great many of the same challenges that the generations who preceded contended with, we do have our own unique tests from our time in service. It is our charge to be our brothers and sisters' keepers. I'll wait till the conversation's done. Okay. Our goals include, but are not limited to, suicide awareness and prevention, advocacy and destigmatization of PTSD, standardizing specialty clinics at all VA medical centers, because not all VA medical centers are created equal, putting forth resolutions to support legislation at addressing the results of burn pits, exposure, etc., veteran homelessness, and the underlying factors. We will be working together with the Women in the Military Committee, the Gulf War Veterans Committee, and others to further the cause of the JWV and our members and our veteran brothers and sisters. Pending any questions, I thank you. This is my report.
Last night I had the opportunity to spend a little time with Josh. We shared a little adult libation and got to know each other. And I'm going to tell you this right now, keep an eye on this young man. Thank you, buddy. Well, we have reached the conclusion of our business for this morning, but I will remind you that we have the museum meeting right here in this room at 1:30 this afternoon. And then the highlight and most important part, I think, of the convention, at least for Harvey, is at 3:30 this afternoon. We have the nomination and election of our next national commander. Be here, be on time. Oh, we're in A and B? Bad notes? Well, we got to set up dinner here. Yeah, we got a dinner tonight too, I'm told. So if you're hungry, come on down. Officer of the day. No, but the meeting's in A and B, dinner's here. I did initially, bad notes. We just corrected that. So I said, if you're hungry, come on down to this room. Got it? Okay, good enough. Officer of the day. We stand in recess.
Is Mark Weiss in the room? Mark?
I'll tell Julia. All right.